In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the next 10 days where we do have a major Rocky Mountain snowstorm on the way, as well as some pretty interesting storms in the east, as well as multiple Arctic blasts to go over in the eastern and central states. Now, before we get into things, be sure to check out Prestige Weather in the description. Pinned comment in the top right corner of your screen where we do weather consulting for individuals and businesses alike. It all starts at only $5 a month, and we do weekly consulting calls, early access to a lot of this content, and a lot of other consulting services within our community. Be sure to check it out today, again, in the pinned comment description or the right hand corner of your screen. Let's dive into things. I'm going to take us towards this evening, and as you can see, we have a storm moving offshore of the eastern states. If you're anywhere in here, it has been a very nasty day today. Lots of rain and even lots of snow for the northeast, where actually I'm hearing word that a lot of lower elevation regions, even in the northeast, did really well as far as snowfall, seeing 1, 2, 3, even 4 inches of snowfall for these areas. And for valleys and river valleys in general, to see that much this time of year is pretty surprising. A pretty impressive system, to say the least. Let's take this towards Thursday afternoon on the day for Thanksgiving, November 23rd. And this is when things start to look snowy out west. As you can see, a pretty major snow system starting to take place for states like Nevada, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, and this is all going to move south in a minute. So let's just focus in right here for Thanksgiving afternoon, where we have heavier snowfall throughout these areas, especially, this is pretty obvious, but the mountaintop locations are going to get more snowfall than those lower elevation regions, most likely, although there is some surprising events where it's the opposite, like we had in the northeast just yesterday. So keep that in mind, but we do expect higher elevations to do better in this situation. Let's keep going towards Friday afternoon. It's going to be Black Friday on November 24th. And all of this kind of consolidates and becomes much more of a round area of snowfall, pretty widespread as well. So for states like Nevada, Idaho, Utah, Wyoming, Colorado, in through states like Nebraska and Kansas, we can see this begins to impact the plains as well, certainly worth mentioning. So a pretty big snowstorm, to say the least, with plenty of moderate to heavy snowfall to go around. Also, we do see some showery or even thunderstorm activity here in the southeast, especially thunderstorms perhaps in Florida, but it is that time of year where we see things like that kind of slowing down. I want to take us towards Saturday, November 25th here, where we do have some snowfall here for New Mexico, Colorado, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Nebraska. Certainly the heaviest at this point for Kansas and Oklahoma, especially near the Panhandle. There is also some ice and mixing happening in the middle, so be on the lookout for that, as that can be equally or even more impactful than snowfall would be. I'm sure a lot of you know that already, but for those of you that don't, it is pretty quiet outside of this system. We are heading into a quieter pattern overall, I would say. There is some interesting things to go over, though. It is interesting as well that this storm, as it moves eastward, becomes a lot more cylinder-like, I would say, just really tall at this point. So ranging all the way from the Gulf of Mexico, the deeper south, the Ohio Valley, the Great Lakes, and into Canada. Here we can see this storm is stacked. We also have a coastal low trying to develop here near the mid-Atlantic, so a lot happening at once. You have your primary low here with a secondary low underneath, and it seems like there's just this kind of frontal boundary trying to take place in here as cold air is kind of filling in behind all of this, not to a severe degree, but it is happening. We do see that this coastal storm successfully does develop and becomes the primary low here offshore of Massachusetts. It isn't very cold, though. It doesn't have a lot of cold to work with as of now, so we don't see a whole lot of snowfall as a result of this. This looks to be much more of a rain and wind event. There is, however, some snowfall for the very high elevation areas like the White Mountains, and then very far northern areas like northern Maine and Canada. But this could change. This could look a little bit more snowy as we get closer. It could look a little bit more rainy. We will keep you guys up to date with this every single day, of course. Now, by this point, the 27th into the 28th, we do actually have some deep cold pouring in. So this is moving in from Canada and really diving southward with some severely cold temperatures compared to normal. We equally have this kind of warm air pattern trying to take place out west, and this causes the jet stream to really ridge up in the west and trough down in the east. And this is a classic pattern that is going to bring abnormally cold temperatures, to say the least, here around early next week. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday time frame, that's going to be the 27th, 28th, and 29th here of November. As we reach towards the 30th, because things are looking very quiet, we do begin to see a storm developing here across the south central states, mostly for Texas at this point. It does appear like a western system is about to take place. And then we do have showers taking place across the northern plains, upper Midwest, Great Lakes, and the Northeast there. As we take this towards December 1st, what we end up seeing happening is a pretty major storm system out west, perhaps our next mountainous snowstorm for the west, across the Cascades, Sierra Nevadas, and even into the Rockies there. And then we do have a pretty minor storm system developing here across the south central states. This is nearing the end of the model run. We do get to the very, very end here on the morning of Saturday, December 2nd, where there is some low pressure trying to develop offshore of the East Coast. But as of now, no major snowstorms or storms in general at all. We do see some minor snowfall happening in the Northeast, but this is a pretty micro detail considering how far out this is. So take this with a grain of salt for sure. I am very confident that it will not look exactly like this by the time we get to this point. I think the much more major feature here is this very stormy looking pattern out west. And as I've kind of mentioned in the past, patterns are a lot easier to predict in the long range than specific details, and I am picking up on a potential pattern here with this storminess out west, so we will be watching for this daily. Now, let's dive into the total precipitation here. No surprise that it is a little bit quieter. With that storm at the end of the model run, we do pick up on some of these amounts in the west, and then mostly for the Gulf states and up the East Coast, we have most of our activity here with the flow clearly looking like this. So those are the areas that we're expecting above average activity. Anywhere in the grays is under 1/10 of an inch. Greens are 1/10 of an inch to 1/2 an inch. Blues are 1/2 an inch to an inch. Your yellows are 1 inch to 2 inches. And then reds are 2 to 5 inches, which we see some of that there for California and Oregon there. And then we see some of it for the Gulf and East Coast. Total snowfall here, very large amounts out west, with first off the storm that's about to happen, and then second off that storm that we see happen at the end of the model run. I think these amounts, especially for the west coast, are a little bit over dramatic considering we're not too confident in that snowstorm yet. But anywhere in the grays is a dusting. If anything, blues are 2 to 6 inches, purples are 6 to 10, and then your pinks are 10 to 20 inches there. We can see across the northern plains and upper Midwest, we have a dusting to maybe a few inches. The Great Lakes are ranging anywhere from a couple of inches to maybe closer to 10. And then same story with the very far northern and very mountainous regions of New England and the rest of the Northeast. Let's dive into your temperature pattern. We do see a warmer pattern overall. We do see some cooler air beginning to move in here for Thanksgiving Day. It's pretty neutral, but it's trying to move in. Then by the time we reach kind of Black Friday into Saturday there, we see some colder temperatures finally making a move. It stays that way through the weekend, and then for the early week, things kind of warm up along the coast. But there's an even more powerful cold front and Arctic blast overall that moves in for the early to midweek next week. So that's going to be about the 27th through the 29th at least. Again, that cold air is blasting down from Canada. That's the definition of an Arctic blast. As we keep going, we can see that things do lift off a little bit. We see warmth return to the east, but it looks like cold is going to be on the way once again, as we do have some warmer temperatures out west, which will likely support more cold air diving eastward over time. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to subscribe for more daily weather videos just like this one. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload, so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.